Okay, so I'm going to continue there with Warleggan, book 3 and chapter 5, about halfway through chapter 5 now. Just to say, Ross has received a letter from Elizabeth saying that she's going to marry George Warleggan. While he read, it had gone dark. Or was it the darkness in his heart and in his mind? He listened to the drumming of his own blood. After the first moments of utter incredulity, his brave, civilized thoughts of this morning were gone, completely swallowed up. You could not fight the imponderables of life, he had thought. But was this such? Was this something to be accepted with resignation and a sigh? That was as far as recognizable thought went. Beyond was all feeling, all feeling. The thing struck him in two ways, together, at his love and at his hate. Either by itself he could have mastered, together they were overpowering. He swung round and out of the room. "Demelza!" There was no answer. He picked up the cloak and went through the kitchen, out to the stables. "Demelza!" No answer. Darky was still saddled. Jane Gimlet came hurriedly out of the still room. "Can I help ye, sir? John'll be back any minute now." "No, tell your mistress I'm here, Ross," said Demelza, coming out from the shadow of the stables. Jane Gimlet looked from one to the other. She could see little, but there was that in their voices which made her go quickly indoors again. He said, "Demelza, I'm going to Trenwith." She had been hiding from him, not because she was afraid of him, but because she could not bear to see him receive this news. "Do not go tonight, Ross." "I must. I have to see Elizabeth." "It will be better in the morning." "You know something?" "Is it about George?" "How did you guess?" "Something I heard. You never told me." "How could I?" This thing." He found he was still holding the letter. He crumbled it into a ball. "This thing must be stopped." "How can you stop it? You can't." "You think not? We'll see." "Ross, I don't want you to go tonight." "Perhaps you don't want me to stop it at all." "I don't want you to, in the only ways you can," she said distressfully. New anger grew in him, one wave overtoppling the last. "Please get out of my way." For a moment she did not move, watching him, striving to see. Always, I never thought it would be like this. There was anger within her too, responding to his, striving to form itself, but as yet she would not let it. "Don't you see, Ross, that you cannot go? For if you do, meaning what you do..." Although she barred his way, her white figure seemed already withdrawn, a little unreal. He tried to force himself to make some move, some affectionate gesture towards her, but for the first time he failed. The spectre of Elizabeth was immovably between them, more real, more tangible to his hurt than Demelza. She saw that she could not stop him. He could not stop himself. This was something fundamental. She stepped out of his way. He mounted his horse and clattered out of the cobbled yard. Trenwith House was in darkness except for two lights on the first floor. From his close acquaintance with the house he knew that one was on the landing and one in Aunt Agatha's room. Elizabeth's room looked out onto the inner courtyard, as did Geoffrey Charles's. The Tabbs slept over the kitchens. He slid off his horse and pulled at the bell beside the front door. Nothing now lingered of the dying day but a bluish tinge in the far west. Stars glimmered brightly, and as he looked a meteor flickered across the sky. The ride had cooled him, but not altered his purpose. His resolutions were finer pointed, less unreasoning and impulsive. The ring being unanswered, he pulled the bell again. After another minute or so he rapped at the door with his crop. Then he stepped back and stared up impatiently at the house. The Tabbs were most probably quite out of earshot. If they were asleep, he might ring till morning. And it would be easier to rouse Charles from Saul churchyard than Aunt Agatha from her room. There was only Elizabeth and Geoffrey Charles. He went back to the door and rapped very loudly on it. Was this a diplomatic retirement on Elizabeth's part? He had not asked what time the letter had been delivered, but perhaps Elizabeth had been expecting a visit from him all afternoon. She could hardly imagine that he would make no move at all. Perhaps as darkness fell, she had bolted all the doors and gone up to bed, determined she should not see him tonight. Well, that was where she might yet be mistaken. He tried the door and found it locked. He stepped away again. The front of the house was impregnable, but he did not suppose it would all be. He walked round to the east side, and an owl flitted away before his crunching footsteps. Here was the herb garden, much overgrown, but doubly aromatic in the late evening, larded with sweet flowers which bewept to the grave did go. Words running through his head. Something was stirring in the bushes now beside himself, a rat or a stray mongrel, mute as he was mute. No business here. Near the house a sycamore tree grew, some of its lesser branches brushing the window, which had once been Verity's, needed lopping. But it had not been lopped. He tested the lower branch, then swung himself into the tree. At this stage he unhooked his cloak and dropped it over a bush below him. "There's fennel for you, and columbines. There's rue. I would give you some violets, but they withered all when my father died." He went on and up, a shadow moving, it seemed, with no great care, till he was level with the window, a small paned leaded casement. From below he had thought it an inch open, but this was not so. Only a single tiny pane in the upper part of the window was open, too far from the catch. The one suitable thing he had was the key to the padlock of his own library door. He took this out and rapped against one of the panes until it broke. Then, almost before the glass had stopped falling, he had thrust in his gloved hand and lifted the catch. A minute later he was in the room. He had made some noise, but distinctly less than at the front door. He came out in the east passage, at the end towards the front of the house. A faint glimmer shivered on the panelled wall. It was the candle on the front landing, just round the corner from the great hall. He went towards it, and was nearly there, when a door opened, and Elizabeth came out.